Hi guys, Ray here from City Fan TV, and it's a joint production today. I'm joined by Bernard and Mike, and we're doing a joint production with the Bolt from the Blue podcast. I do believe it's the third most popular Manchester City podcast. And guess what, guys?
Losers, mate. Third's
No.
losers. You ask Newcastle.
It's number one in terms of freedom. It's cost you night to watch City Fan TV, cost you night to get your comments read out, and it costs you night to listen to the Bolt from the Blue podcast, which in this day and age, you don't get much for free anymore. So I'll say welcome to the guys.
Obviously you don't, mate. Listen to this. No.
Bernard's already opened his big cake hole. Mike, how are you, mate?
I'm doing pretty well and excited for this conversation. It's a fascinating topic we're going to talk about.
Yeah, guys, we are going to talk about 5 players who some people are thinking they're coming to the end of their City careers because either they want to leave, apparently, or are not happy for whatever reason, or, they're not going to be offered a new contract, possibly. So we're going to look at 5 players. I'll rattle the names off, and then we'll go through them one by one. So we're going to talk about Ilkay Gundogan, Kyle Walker, Aymeric Laporte, Riyad Mahrez, and Bernardo Silva. Now, there's one or two other players that we might want to talk about, but I don't want in this video and podcast to think about the players like Gomez and Phillips who've only been here one season. We can't really look at them. I'm going to talk about players that are first-team players and players that, can still contribute at the highest level and that we might want to stay. Phillips and Carson and people like that, and Gomez, Peroni, they haven't done anything. So I just don't think it's worth it. And talking about the players who are definitely going to stay, there's no point. So we're going to focus on these guys. So I think we'll start with the player who's out of contract this summer, and that's Ilkay Gundogan. Now, we saw last season how in the crucial final run-in, he stepped up. He didn't start the last game last season. He came on. We were 2-0 down. He made the difference. He scored 2 goals. We won by 3-2. Ilkay Gundogan has been awesome in his time at City. And in the last 2 months this season, he's been brilliant again. In Pep's best side, that he's been playing in the top games in the league, in the top Champions League games, Ilkay Gundogan's name is on that team sheet, and he's captain. So he's now, I think, somewhere in the region of 32 years old. He's out of contract in the summer. So I'll start with Bernard. Bernard, what are your thoughts on Ilkay Gundogan as to how the level of football he's playing, why he might not be staying, and why you'd want him to stay?
I think with Gundo, I think the thing with Gundo is that obviously I remember when he came, he obviously was his first purchase. He wasn't fit, he was injured at the time. So we didn't see him for a good while, from what I remember. And when he did appear, he had a transitional period where he seemed a bit frightened of putting a tackle in or getting tackled because he didn't want the serious injury to happen again. So City stuck by him. That's what I'm going to say. You might see where this is leading a little bit. So City stood by him in those times, and he's been very, very useful at crucial times for us. Perhaps stepped in when KDB's not been quite at it, in the same way Bernardo stepped in the other night to sort of pull us by the bootstraps and give us that, the road to Istanbul. And Gundo had done exactly the same at Everton previously in the game before that to win that game for us. But as of course we don't know for sure. We think he's been offered a year. He's looking for security. I say he's only got 2 years left at peak. He might, all right, he could go over to Saudi, the Emirates or whatever. This where Ronaldo, where all these guys are going and stuff like that. If he wants a bit more money, they might be interested. He's a cracking player. There's no doubt about it. And I'm thinking at the moment, well, if Gundo doesn't want to stay and he does go, is he a replaceable? Have we got someone to step into his boots? So that takes us really. What's Gundo's position? I'm going to come over to Mike here. What do you say Gundo's actual position? Is he a defensive midfield? Is he a creative midfield? Is he an attacker. I mean, you know, what exactly are we looking for in Gundo that makes him irreplaceable if we don't offer him a 2 or 3 year contract, which I don't think we're going to do now because it's getting late in the day.
The answer to that is all three, basically, because I would say that he would be more often employed as an attacking midfielder, someone who can score crucial goals, but someone who can slot in handily to replace Rodri if need be, and that's to the chagrin of someone like Calvin Phillips. He's a multi-dimensional midfield attacking talent, and he can fill a number of spots. And whether a player decides to go or stay, I think, is a function of three things: what the club wants, what the player wants, and what his family wants. Now he's a newlywed, and you know, it's highly unlikely that Mrs. Gundogan, his new bride, is a huge fan of the climate in Manchester, and so she'll have a big say in it, I guess. But as a player, certainly, they also have to consider he's been phenomenal, especially the last 2 seasons. How much longer can he keep contributing in that way? And so they'll have to weigh that up against his own inclinations and whether they can get someone who can fill that role.
The thing is, Mike, we said the same things last season. We said the same. You know, he's getting on, and he's you know, he was 31 then, he's 32 now, and we're saying the same questions or same comments as last season.
Yeah, he wasn't married back then, though.
Oh yeah, but I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that aspect. I'm just saying the fact that we were worried that he's 31. He never had a tremendous amount of pace. Could he keep going? Could he keep performing at a high level? And he's doing that. He's not let us down. So again, I'm at that same.
Is he holding City to ransom?
I don't think so. I don't think he's bothered about the money. Okay, if you look at some of the, all right, he's a very, very wealthy man. Let's say he's on about 200 grand a week, but he gives a lot of money away in Turkey for projects there, and so I don't think he's driven now. He's at that stage where he doesn't need to be driven by the money. He's been playing at top level for 12 years, something like that, 12 or 13 years, and he's been at City. This is his 7th season. He's on good money. He's made an absolute fortune, and he'll carry on making money because he'll have 2 or 3 more years at a good level where he'll earn good money. He can, if he wants, get that retirement in Saudi or one of the rich Middle Eastern leagues. I don't think there's an issue about the money, and he'll still get endorsements and stuff like that because he is a pin-up poster boy for German stroke Turkish, football. Let's say maybe not as much Turkish football, but his background is obviously from Turkey. So I think he doesn't need the money. So I don't think it's going to be the money. It might be that he wants to play at a top level. Now, my opinion is, I think he probably has got 2 more good years in him. Now it might be he wants 3. He might want that certainty, that assurance that he's going to get a good contract in terms of length. Because let's be honest, when he leaves City, he's only going down. So he'll be 20 in October. He'll be 33. Now it might be that he wants 2 years or 3 years, and City have offered him less than that. As far as I'm concerned, if he wants 3 years, I'll offer him 3 years. Because you could argue, he's probably too old. But look at Luka Modric. He's still doing the business. He's 37. So I'm not going to hold his age against him. And again, if you offer him a 3-year contract and after 2 years, someone else has taken over, one of the academy kids has come through, or we bought somebody else, maybe even Jude Bellingham or whoever, and we don't need him, he's not getting much game time, then you cut him loose. You give him that option of the 3 years, because if he's good enough for 3 years, he'll stay for 3 years. I personally would move heaven and earth to keep him because he's got that experience. And whoever comes in next, I don't want to be in a position where we lose Bernardo and Gundogan in the same summer, because you're going to have to replace them. Now that you could argue that Foden can play attacking midfielder. Look at that pass he made for the final goal against Real Madrid. So Foden will end up playing as an attacking midfielder.
Well, Pep switches his midfielders, doesn't he? But obviously Gundo is a little bit special in that, as Mike said, he can play defensively and he can play more forward-looking as well, which is probably a role I think Pep's trying to get Stones into as well, isn't it?
But Stones is not going to give those delightful through balls and for the assist. He's not going to be popping up in the box for the goals. So the reason I want him to stay as another reason is to help nurture whoever's coming through, whoever is the guy for next. Say we do buy some. Let's say we even buy Jude Bellingham for argument's sake, and he joins. Even though I think he's a fantastic player and got huge potential, he might struggle that first season, like so many other players have struggled. And I don't want to be in the position of getting a new player in and having a transitional season because Gundogan and Bernardo have left.
It was like having Ferner and Rodri at the same time, wasn't it? It was that transition, as you say.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll ask the guys a quick question because then we'll move on to somebody else. Bernard, do you want City to offer Gundogan the contract that he wants? Would you pull out all the stops to keep him?
I will pull out all the stops to offer him a 2-year contract. If he wants 3 and he's going to quibble over it, then fair enough. We'll have to take the hit. But I don't see any reason at all why we don't offer him 2 years.
Mike, what do you think?
Absolutely 100% give him what he wants. He's not going to want more than 3 years. If he was to insist on 3, you'd be rolling the dice on his third and final season, but he's worth the gamble. So absolutely 100% keep him.
Yeah, I agree. Keep him. And if you can, even if he only does 2 more seasons and Pep leaves as well, it's perfect timing. Going to move on to somebody who's not really featured much this season, and that's Aymeric Laporte, and probably towards the end of last season as well. Now, Aymeric Laporte, his contract is up in 2025. Okay, and he's not too old at the moment. He's still got plenty of mileage in him. But the point is, I mean, he's only 28. He'll be 29.
He'll be 30 when his contract expires.
Yeah. I mean, he's 29 next week. So let's call him 29 because that's what he's in the season. So, but he's 29, but he's not featured that much for City, and I think that's the issue. He's only featured, not started, but featured, I believe, in 10 Premier League games this season out of 35. That's nothing. He's in the League Cup. He's basically a second choice. In Europe, he's featured 4 times. Well, we've played 12 games. He's featured 4 times. Doesn't mean he started those games. He's hardly started. So in the whole season, 21 games, and we've played about 60 games. So he knows if we're honest about it, he's behind Akanji, he's behind Stones, he's behind Diaz. Walker's slightly different because he plays on the right, but he's behind Ake, Stones. He's behind everybody, basically. And even Rico Lewis has been getting games in preference to Laporte. So the word on the street seems to be that he's going to look elsewhere because he wants to, and I don't blame him because he wants to play football. He's at that age and that level. He's won plenty at City, and he's still good enough to get a good team interested in him in Europe. So whether that's potential someone like PSG or Bayern Munich or somewhere in Spain or Italy if he wants, still a step down. But I'll go to Mike first. What do you think about what Aymeric Laporte has brought to City and what potentially he could bring going forwards?
There's something behind the scenes that we don't know about. Something in the relationship between Laporte and the coaching staff that we don't know about, whether it be his attitude or something in his personality. We do know that he does have a singular personality. We do know that he's rubbed up international coaches the wrong way at times. He seems to be a bit of a loner, and that he can come across as aloof from what I've read. But he's a fantastic, solid central defender with a great left foot, and he has just been really unfortunate. He's suffered by being at City at the time when the others around him are in the form of their lives. And at the beginning, I thought he was a better player than Stones. I thought he would have been a perfect partner for Ruben Diaz, but he eventually got basically replaced by John Stones, even when Stones spent a lot of time out injured and he came back, he would replace Laporte. And then you had Akanji coming in, and who had no great, fantastic international reputation. Laporte falls behind him as well. So it all screams something about the nature of his relationship with Pep that probably would indicate that he's on his way in the summer, because he's far too good a player to be sitting on the bench, I would say.
Yeah, Bernard, do you think Laporte is too good to be a bit part player at City? And especially at the age he is, that he deserves and he wants to go and be a big star somewhere else?
I think quite right. I think quite rightly he does. I think Laporte has a right to think that. The couple of years left on his contract, it's at the stage where normally with City will be thinking about extending it. There's no hints of that happening at all. He knows where he is in the pecking order, and Laporte, let's face it, was one of the first names on the team sheet. Last season before, that centre-half partnership. And as you said, you pointed out, Ray, he's gone way down the pecking order, and they're still talking about getting Guardiola in. So, I mean, that means that so what's he got to stay for? For me, I quite agree with Laporte. If he wants to sod off, his agent's looking around, and because he deserves to play for a good club somewhere, because it doesn't look as though at the moment it's going to happen at City for him. So, yeah. No objection at all. If he go, objection because I think he's a good player. He's a good. I'm sure he could come back to being one of our first names on the team sheet, but he's just not getting that opportunity. So, I don't blame him one iota.
So you wouldn't bust a gut to try and persuade him?
No. I think unless we can offer him a better percentage of playing matches and back up there with one of our leading defenders, and if we're talking about Guardiola, as I said, that's putting his nose out even more. So for me, City are telling me, if I was Laporte, that I haven't got a future.
Yeah, Mike, you agree? It's not worth pushing the boat out. There's nothing we can really. There's no guarantees we can offer Laporte. So why would he stay?
No, I mean, it's not that I don't want him to stay. It's just that I know that he won't, unless he is. The money would be no problem. Contract length would be no problem to someone like him. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that he cannot be guaranteed is game time, and that he won't accept that. So that's the reason I'm pretty sure that he will move on. It's not a question of not wanting him to stay. I really wish that he would, but it's a bit of a shame watching a talent like that rot on the bench.
At 28, 29, you've got to be playing regularly. You can't be on the bench and be cast with a fourth or fifth choice in a certain position. It's not right.
Yeah. So,
and he's a full international as well.
Yeah, totally agree, guys. Okay, we are going to move on to another one who's actually, I do believe, has got his birthday on the same day as Aymeric Laporte next week, if I'm right, or within one day of him. And that's somebody who, a couple of times in his City career in the last few years, we thought was on his way out. We thought, he's not good enough anymore. And that's Kyle Walker. Now, Kyle Walker is 32 years old. He'll be 33 next week. His contract runs out in 2024. 1 year left on his contract. But we saw, obviously this season, what's happened to him. He was dropped. He was behind Rico Lewis. He's had lots of off-field, very well publicized, let's say, indiscretions over the last 3 or 4 years. He's been caught out a few times. But we saw against Real Madrid, he was awesome at 32, almost 33. The way he caught up to Vinicius Jr. after, being a little bit out of position was something quite extraordinary. The way he's fought back to be part of this first team again, the way he worked hard when Pep dropped him, and Pep said he can't. Basically, he doesn't have the intelligence or the football intelligence to play the role that John Stones or Rico Lewis were playing, working with Rodri in as a double pivot, double DM, and Walker can only offer that right-hand side role. But Pep's gone back to him so many times in the last couple of months, especially the big games. He's impressed. So I'll go to Bernard on this one. What are your thoughts on what Kyle Walker's contributed this season? And given that he's only got 1 year left on his contract, what do you think should happen?
Well, again, with only having 1 year left on his contract, you're asking the question why something's not been in the air of actually keeping on for another at least 1 season, not 2 seasons, with Walker. Great. I think Walker's done... Just when you think you can cope without him, he comes in itching and comes and makes you know that you can't really do without him for certain games, certain circumstances, and that's what he's done. And all credit to Walker, he's knuckled. I don't think anyone can, all right, apart from his naughty boy element, I don't think anyone can quibble as a City fan what he's given to this club and the loyalty he's shown to this club and the determination he's shown. And as I say, I worry again that he's not been offered something, or seemingly not. We don't know what's going on behind it, but it certainly looks that way with only a season left, of course, after this one. But I mean, I'd like him to be perhaps on another two-year option if I can, if he's happy, which he seems to be. Obviously, another year on top of what he's got, which will take him to 34, which by that with a possibility. I mean, there's nothing to say at 34, right? We're thinking, oh no, it won't be the same at 34, but with the possible, if you're up to it, I mean, both the club and him agree. Why not another year on that? But is the England right back? I don't think there's anyone better for England still. So. For me, anyway, and yeah, I'd do everything to at least keep him, extend that contract a little bit with an option of more, because just to reward him, because I think he deserves it. I think for what he's done, he's got, he's bounced back from the stick from Pep, and he's shown Pep, and he's knuckled down and got on with it. For me, I wouldn't want to lose him.
Mike, do you concur with Bernard that? Kyle Walker is a person that we should be pulling out the stops to keep.
I do concur with Dr. Deneen, absolutely. Now, I'm a huge fan of Walker. The only thing that worries me is that when a player of that magnitude gets to within a year of the end of his contract, you expect to hear some news. And we haven't heard anything, at least I haven't anyway. That worries me a bit. Now, these days... you have players of around about that age employed on rolling 1 year contracts, which basically means you keep doing it for us, we'll keep rehiring you until we can't use you anymore. Now, I think what was very telling was Pep's comments after the game against Real Madrid, which seemed to indicate that Walker had taken his licks, he had taken it on board, he knows his limitations. And he's reacted very positively. Now, the one thing that, if you know anything about Pep, he doesn't like scowlers. He doesn't like people that go in huffs and strops. And it seems that Kyle is not like that. I think that he will probably be offered a rolling 1 year contract after his contract expires. And I think I would be very, very happy if we did that.
Okay, that gets us Kyle Walker. I think I agree. I want Kyle Walker to stay. I want an extra year, so an extension. It might just be because it is quite intense at the moment. That we don't want to be talking about contracts. We'll wait till the end of the season, and that's when things will happen. And it's the same with Gundogan and the others. They might be waiting to see who might be coming, who might be joining.
Right, we might wait to see how many of these 115 charges land, so they don't want to commit themselves.
I don't think about that. That'll happen for a bit. So that's Walker. I'm going to move on from Kyle Walker to the Algerian prince that is Riyad Mahrez. Now, Riyad Mahrez has still got 2 years left on his contract at City, according to the information I'm just looking at. Now he is 32 years old. He was 32 years old. His birthday was in February. So by the time he finishes, he'll be 34. Now, there are, I think, various options, various ways to look at this. I cannot see him leaving this summer, but would you be looking at an extra year, or because he's got 2 years, do you say, I'll let you play another year before we decide? Or do you think other option is for him and for us to let him go? Maybe not this summer, but maybe this summer after, when he's still got a little bit of value, where you can still get 10 or 20 million. He'll be 33. Maybe you can still get 15 or 20 million pounds for him, and he can go off somewhere else, maybe back to Spain, to France, and do something there. So, Bernard, what are your thoughts on the Algerian Prince and what he's contributed this season, and what you think he can still offer City going forwards? Because just to give you an idea, he has featured in 27 out of 35 Premier League games, so it's not rubbish. He's only got 5 goals, which is a bit disappointing. But in Europe, he's featured 9 times, so 9 out of the 12 games he scored 3 goals. So overall this season, he's had 44 games. Now, to be honest, the fewest games he ever had at City was his first season with 44. The most was 50 in his second season. So this is a decent number. If you argue he might feature in 3 or 4 more games, he's going to be up there with maybe 47, 48, 49 games this season, which is a lot of games to play. So what do you think he's offered so far, and what do you think he can still do, Bernard?
He's an enigma, right? And see, I mean, he's just one of, the first thing off the top of my head, I would say that if he went tomorrow, I wouldn't particularly be crying about it, not in a horrible way, because I think within his ability, I mean, I'd never ever think any player on that pitch playing for City at the moment doesn't give 100%. It just looks as though he doesn't give 100% sometimes, and I'm sure he is, but he does split opinions. Of course, he still does. I mean, how many years he's been with us? Quite a few years now. But there's certainly no sign of him going this year. I don't have any hint that he's going to go this season. So he's still going to be there for at least next season. Like you were saying there, we could get a few quid for him the season after. And as far as Pep's there, if Pep's there, and Pep seems happy with him, and he plays him in certain roles at certain times, and he does the business at certain roles at certain times, and he's not going to change. He's going to carry on doing what he's done for the last few seasons. Would I be happy if someone come in for him and took him? It wouldn't bother me one iota. If he stays, I trust in Pep that he's happy with him playing in certain roles in certain games. He doesn't convince me either way, unfortunately. I'd love it'd be nice, I think, Ray, you want your speed, don't you? You want your speed on the wing. I think, what adaptations Pep will make next season to this system he's been playing since Ireland came, I don't know. It doesn't particularly work that well sometimes with Grealish and Mahrez, and Grealish isn't going anywhere. So with both Grealish and Mahrez is the obvious one. You can switch around and get a faster guy over there. So that's the only thing for me, that we perhaps do need a bit more speed, as you've been banging on for a while about. Mahrez is the obvious choice, but at this point in time, I can't see him going anywhere. But certainly wouldn't offer him. I personally wouldn't offer him an extension, but hey, I'm sure I'm not going to have a go at him because he's a City player, and I think even though he doesn't look as though he's done his best, I'm sure he has.
Yeah, Mike, the question I'm going to ask you is about Riyad Mahrez. Is he does what Pep wants him to do in a game? He doesn't take too many risks. Okay, and so.
Very rarely loses it, does he? Yeah. Very rarely. I mean, if he can't do anything with it, at least he'll recycle it back to someone else.
That's what we want, and so that's where he's really, really good. Obviously, controlling the ball, he's the best in the world, and he does have a wonderful left foot. But Mike, so based on all that, how do you see Riyad Mahrez? Is it worth it because he does exactly what Pep wants? And he's not going to lose that ball and recycle it, hanging on to it? Or do you want more? And do you think, like Bernard, if someone came in for him or he decided to move on, you ain't bothered?
Well, I think this is a point on which I and Bernard profoundly disagree. If he was to leave, I would be crying, actually. There's a certain... When a player gets into his 30s, there's an old maxim that you never lose the skill, but you lose the ability to run. Now, he's a unique specimen, Mahrez. He's got that certain wiry physique that means that he is not I'm not seeing him lose any pace. And he's often been criticised as a one-trick pony in the same way that Arjen Robben was, but it's a very devastating trick that he does have. And whilst I don't think that the City board will be queuing up to offer him, years and years of contract, he'll certainly, I think he'll certainly finish out his 2 years with us. He's an exciting player. I've got a huge soft spot for this guy, and I just the type of runs he makes, the types of passes that he can make, he never really lets you down. I think you can say that he was ineffective sometimes, or some people would be unkind and said that in certain games he was anonymous. But my goodness, when he's on it, he is really on it. He is a real weapon, and even as a squad player, he is a real threat. If you take a look at any team you're up against, what you want to look at is what they've got on their bench and how many potential game changers are there. And we've got Foden, we've got Alvarez, and for me, Mahrez fits into that category. He can really damage teams. He can really hurt them without needing to have played the whole game. So I would say that he'll take his 2 years. He's very, very rarely in the headlines. He doesn't create controversy. He seems to get along with Pep. You can see his goal celebrations with the other players. He's got a great relationship with them. There's absolutely no need to get rid of him. But I think it's one of those situations where if he's got 2 years left on his contract, I know that players, they get kind of jumpy if they're not offered an extra year, an extra 2 years. But if he's happy enough that they'll look at it again closer to the end of that 2 year period, then I think that's what's going to happen. But absolutely, I would be devastated if he was to leave us.
Well, for me right now, he's got 2 years left. So I would bide my time. I'd wait, see how he performs next season, see obviously who we might get, how they fit in. You could end up getting someone like, for argument's sake, Gomez or Phillips, and you might think, Phillips, England is international, but he doesn't. He might be injured, doesn't settle the first season. We could go and get Kvaratskhelia. Sorry if I got his name wrong again, and he might not settle that first season, and we might be wanting Mahrez to give us that control back. So I want him to play another season, and then we'll just decide. He's still young enough. He doesn't rely exclusively on pace, so he relies on what's going on in his head. So I think another season, but also like Bernard, if someone comes in and offers 40 million from Riyad Mahrez right now, tell you what, I'd drive him to Paris myself. That sort of money really does make a huge difference to your finances.
So you don't care about Mike being devastated, mate. You just don't care, do you?
No sympathy.
No. I'd give him Mike a call and let him cry my shoulder, but no, we can do that whilst I'm driving. I'll carry Mahrez on my back. Someone offers, 50 million, 40 million. I'd drive him there. 50 million, honestly, I'd carry him on my back. Because as I said, it will make such a huge difference to the finances. And all right, finances aren't what you should be thinking about, as your initial thoughts about whether players should come or go. But it will make a huge impact on FFP going forwards, having the profit on the sale of Mahrez. It's not the cash flow, but it's the profit on the sale. It makes a huge difference to your accounts. And if you're selling for 40 million, that basically pays the amortization and the wages for a top player. If you want to get Jude Bellingham, for argument's sake, and pay him, we might have to pay 120 million. Put him on a 6-year contract, that's 20 million of amortization. Pay him 300 grand a week, that's 35 million. We'd make, if we sold Mahrez for 40 million, we'd make that much profit. So we cover his first year. That's the way I look at it. And although Mahrez has done really, really well, I think there are upgrades on him. Everybody would take Vinicius Jr. in a heartbeat instead of Mo Salah. Or Mo Salah. You take someone like that in a heartbeat over our man Riyad Mahrez. So, although we love him dearly, Mike, I'd let him go if the money was right. Finally, we move on to the 2-goal hero, the star on Wednesday night, and that's Bernardo Silva, who, look, we've been hearing this story now. It must be 3 years that Bernardo wants to leave. It was during lockdown that he wanted to leave. He wants to go to sunnier climes. Well, he's not gone. The fans absolutely love him. Look at the songs. When City winning games, who are they singing about right now? It used to be Raheem Sterling. Where's Raheem Sterling? He's top of the league. Now, who do they sing about? It's Bernardo Silva. It's the Istanbul song. It's been going on. Bernardo running down the wing and all that. It's been going on that song for 2 or 3 years at least. He is definitely
we've had to change location a few times, haven't we? That's how long it's been going on.
He's that good. Now his contract, if Bernardo Silva, okay, let's look at his age. He's 28, he'll be 29 in August. So he's certainly got 3 or 4 good years in him. His contract runs out in 2025, as does, as I've mentioned, Riyad Mahrez and Aymeric Laporte. So I'm going to go to Bernard first. How big a player is Bernardo Silva when he's on his game for City, and how desperate? And I'm sure this time, Bernard, you will beg, but I'm not putting words into your mouth. But how much do you want Bernardo Silva to say?
The thing with Bernardo is he's one of these guys that I think is underutilised at times, but that's because he's doing a job for Pep. It's as simple as that. You commented before about Mahrez does a job for Pep, and Bernardo does that sometimes. But when he's given a freer aim, we can see how brilliant he is. I mean, we saw that obviously when he's allowed to wander up and demolish Real Madrid with a couple of cracking, well-taken goals. We've seen some cracking goals in time, but he doesn't score enough for me because of how he plays, because of how Pep plays him, not because of his own fault. It's just how Pep plays him. He's played him at left-back, for God's sake, for a couple of months ago. He was playing from left-back up to the right wing. He was playing right across the pitch, and that's what Pep does with him. He's one of these players, though, that, value-wise, who the hell can afford him at the moment? What we'd want for him? We'd have to sort of virtually give him away for any of the top teams of his quality that he would join. Let's say there's not many, and we would have to sort of ask a lot of money, and if we don't, we're in the wrong. But as you said, he's been going on for 2 or 3 years now. He wants to go. He's still there. He still gets on with the other guys. Still pick on him. Seems to pick on him in every single way whatsoever. He seems happy with it. Some people call it bullying. It's when you've seen certain things happening. But perhaps that's got to him. I'm not too sure. But he seems happy enough. But as you said, he does. He's 28. He's at that age now where he would have to go somewhere else. But yeah, I mean, I would sign him on for another couple of years on top of what he's got now, if I could. Yeah. But it's all down to Bernardo, and I think, like all the players, City should be fair to him. He's given us, he's repaid us more than enough. It's not as though he owes us anything. I was hinting a little bit that perhaps Gundo needs to repay us a little bit more, perhaps for those early days. But I was being a bit harsh there because he's been with us a while now. But Bernardo doesn't particularly owe us anything because I think he's tried to repay us. He's done everything Pep's wanted. He's done everything the fans wanted, and we do love him. I'd give him a new contract tomorrow. I'd extend his contract tomorrow. But as you said, we're still a bit puzzled as to what's going on, whether he still wants to go, but who can afford him as well. So it's again another funny one, really. What we're going to do?
Yeah, Mike, how much do you love Bernardo Silva? How much do you think he's critical to City over the next couple of years, and how much do you want to? How far would you go? How far would you go to make him stay?
Istanbul.
Guys, I'm going to begin by channeling my Ian Holloway. I'll take you back to your teenage years. A particular girl that you absolutely fancied and had no chance with, but you managed to get dating her.
I got
but you were in a constant state of insecurity because she was flashing her eyelashes at other guys, and that's the way it's been with Bernardo for about the past 2 or 3 years. We've had the same conversation over and over again. It's pretty clear that he wants that the big part of him wants to go, but success and a reputation on the world stage is a big convincer. What I really love about Bernardo is he's a bit like Ray. He's a top class Bert, and he really loves winding up the opposition. I love it whenever he takes the Mickey out of Liverpool.
I think it's a Portuguese
and
trait,
Arsenal.
isn't it? I think that's a Portuguese trait from looking at the guy over the road who does it as well.
But anyway, in conclusion, I don't want to go on for too long, obviously, but I would move heaven and earth to get him to stay if it could be done. I'd offer him whatever length of contract he wants. I'd up his salary as well. I'd do everything that I could, but unfortunately, it's too much of a recurrent theme about how much he wants to live somewhere else, and not play somewhere else, but live somewhere else. But I think, as Ray pointed out, you're going to have to spend 70 or 80 million on that guy, and who's got that kind of money?
This is it, and this is where I look at all the players, Mike. That's an excellent point. Obviously, it comes back to money as well. You look at each of these players and say, how much would it cost us to buy a player at that level? And against how much would it cost us to renew a contract or to give him a signing on bonus? Let's look at, and I'll go through all the players quickly. Ilkay Gundogan, okay, to buy someone at his level, surely you're going to spend 60, 70, 80 million quid, okay? To renew extend his contract for 2 or 3 years, I think a signing on bonus 5 million, 10 million, more than enough. Look at that massive difference. Same with Laporte. To buy a quality player like Laporte, you're looking 60, 70 million. But if he leaves, his is different because if he wants to leave, you're not going to make him stay. Same with, but go back to Mahrez. Yeah, you want to extend his contract to get someone like محرز. Again, we paid 60 million for him. I guess to get someone, all right, maybe he's obviously not looking at the age, but to get someone of that quality, you're going to pay him 50, 60 million again. Bernardo, right now, 100 million for his age. He's in the prime of his career. He's so critical to Man City. He can play in so many different positions. We've seen him play at left back this season. We've seen him play at a DM alongside Rodri. We've seen him play attacking midfield. We've seen him play on the right wing. Yeah, he'll play anywhere. The only player I don't want to see is in goal because he's a short ass like me. So all these players, have it would cost us. They're not irreplaceable is wrong, but it costs us too much money to replace them, and you're better off adding, giving them a signing on bonus of 5 or 10 million and extending contracts, and maybe
there's one thing, Ray, that troubles me. There's one thing that troubles me, and that is that Pep, when he discerns that there's someone who doesn't want to stay, he's quite willing to let them go on a song. Now, you think about Leroy Sané. Now, he was worth, in his prime, he was worth 80, 90 million.
Well, that's Pep's fault.
And he went for a song.
But that's Pep's fault because he got, no. The thing is, Mac, he had 2 years left on his deal. He was going to go for 80 odd million pounds or 80 odd million euros to Bayern Munich. He got injured in a game that he didn't need to play in the Community Shield against Liverpool. He was out for the season. Then he had 1 year left on his contract. So Pep's stupidity, there's no other word for it. We had to pay Sané's wages that season, whatever that's going to be. Let's call it 10 million quid. Okay. Pep cost us that. And he cost us on the sale probably at least 30 million quid. Pep cost us 40 million quid and that was for playing in a game that he didn't need to play him in. So, I don't think we sell him.
Although that's not the only example, though, Ray. I think you'll agree that when Pep senses that you don't want to stay, he'll let you go.
There's a few things, Mike. We do let players go on the cheap, okay? I do believe, but I think part of that is because we've persuaded him to stay a little bit longer. I look at Tosin Adarabioyo. We told him he had a chance at a future. He signed a new contract, and we just didn't give him an opportunity. We ended up selling him for, was it 1.5 million quid or 0.5 million quid? Peanuts. He's worth 10 times that or 20 times that. But I think probably we had a deal with him. Please sign. If we don't play you enough, we'll give you an easier exit from City because we'll make it cheap. And I think we're doing that with a few players by persuading them to sign. Look at or Angelino. We got him to come back, and then we flogged him. Sent him out on loan 6 months later and flogged him. Now, why would he come back? We give him an opportunity. He didn't cut it, but we let him go cheap because he was worth more than the 22 £23 million we sold him for. He was worth probably 30, 35. He had a couple of good games in the Champions League that season. I think against Man United. Was it Man United? He ripped them apart. So I think because we have an agreement with players, please sign, please stay. We'll let you go easily if the time comes for us to part company. So I don't worry about that. So, but the finances are important. I think it's better, as I said, to keep players on. It's better to pay the money in slightly higher wages, pay the money in a signing on bonus than having to get. Can you imagine if we, for argument's sake, pay £10 million to Ilkay Gundogan to sign a 2-year contract and give him that as a signing on bonus? If, for argument's sake, the alternative is getting whoever, I'm just going to use the same name again, Jude Bellingham, we'd be paying him at least 10 million signing on bonus, as well as higher wages than Gundogan. So the player you replace the incumbents with is going to cost you more in terms of wages.
The thing is, as well, I mean, if you can get another 2 or 3 years out, and the way our academy's working now with some of these youngsters coming through, there's nothing to say, like Peroni or whoever it is. All right, it's not academy, but the guys who've been loaned out and coming back. There's nothing to say 1 or 2 of them aren't going to pop into that position where you don't have to pay anything.
Look at some of the players we've let go. I mean, and that are worth a lot more than we let them go for. I'm not going down they were too cheap, but tossing it about Adebayo, he's not going to come back. Romeo Lavia. Now, this talk of people wanting to pay 35, 40 million quid for that kid, and we let him go for what, 15 or 20? I can't
Douglas
remember.
Luiz as well, yeah.
Douglas Luiz, we got decent money for Douglas Luiz, but there was talk about him coming back to City last season or the season before. So there are players out there who we've let go, who because they've got no immediate future, and we are holding them back by keeping them in the reserves or on the bench most of the time. Look at Cole Palmer. He's done nothing this season, and he's look at the difference in Cole Palmer and Lavia. Last season, Cole Palmer was coming through. It looked like he could be the next breakthrough player. He's not done anything this season. He's hardly played. Lavia's gone out and played. He's worth 35, 40 million quid. People want him. So I 100% agree with you, Bernard, that in 2 years' time, we will have a lot more players coming through. Look at who we've got. McAtee, he's out on loan at Sheffield United. He's had a decent season. We've got players that might make it, and it's just the sheer weight of numbers. We've got so many players. Somebody will make it. Some of these players will make it. And if we can keep people like Gundogan for another 2 years, people like maybe Mahrez or Bernardo Silva, maybe you're right. In 2 years' time, we've got ready-made replacements for them, and they've cost us now. Peroni might make it. We don't know. So I think it's a great opportunity for the youngsters to keep on. And that's the other thing I want. I want them to keep on learning. I want them to learn from Ilkay Gundogan. That's why look at Rodri when he came. He wasn't a patch on Fernandinho, especially with the dark arts. But now he's so much better because he learnt off the master. So if you want to play similar to Gundogan, you want to learn off the master, and that's Gundogan. So that's how I see it, guys. I'm going to call it a day. We've been on a little bit longer than expected, but it's such a interesting and emotive topic about these players, because you can see most of them, I do believe, with the exception of Aymeric Laporte, we're quite happy to let him go. And Mahrez, if a good offer came in, we'd let him go with the others.
Well, apart from Mike's not on that.
Well, I think we can agree that certainly Kyle Walker, certainly Bernardo Silva, certainly Ilkay Gundogan, we want these guys to stay for a few more years yet. Big thank you to Bernard. Big thank you to Mike. This is a joint production from City Fan TV and the Bolt from the Blue podcast. Thank you so much, guys.
Up the Blues.